In this whole world, what we need to know, we need to teach people how to fish. That's what it is. And what we're doing is we're giving people fish. I don't want to give people fish. I want to teach people to fish so that I can move away and come back if you need me to come visit, but that you're well equipped with being able to ensure that your entire staff has everything that they need.
Welcome back, sis, to the Gifted Table.
Well, thank you for welcoming me back.
How could I not?
I appreciate that. Yeah.
We're in the month of October.
Yes.
And you have something very significant, very specific, and very impactful coming up in just a couple of months. Let's tell the table family what's going on in your room.
Okay, so we are going to be hosting the 4th annual Quantum 10 Q10 Conference, International Educational Conference at the Irvine Marriott, December 6th, 7th, and 8th. The 6th is our pre-session. Come and join us. The 7th and 8th are our regular sessions, and we have some amazing keynotes lined up for you.
Who are you targeting? Who's your targeting audience? What is the outcomes you're looking for this 4th annual conference?
We're looking for educational leaders. We're looking for teachers. We're looking for classified, certificated. We're looking for individuals who want to ensure that they are holistically looking at an approach to ensure that all students and learners, not just student learners, but adult learners too, have everything they need in order to be successful. So the Quantum 10 has 10 elements, which you can look on the website for.
Well, we're going to show it again.
Oh, yeah,
we have your graphic. The people going to see it right now.
Those elements are Maslow's hierarchy of needs, growth mindset, culturally responsive practices, universal design for learning, restorative practices, positive behaviors, interventions and supports, response to intervention, inclusive practices, social emotional learning, trauma-informed practices. And with that, there's a center. The center is I consider the core 4, which is family and community engagement, adaptive leadership, high quality instruction, and student-centered culture, which ends up with opportunity, access, engagement, and success for all.
We want to talk about intentionally integrating those practices so that we are not just targeting the students that, and I don't want to say the word targeting, that's kind of, but that we're not just like catering to those students that are traumatized, but also those students who come in with other challenges. So Q10 and the integration really focuses on all students so that when students are experiencing whatever they're experiencing, that educators are well trained in those areas. I also want to share that we have an opportunity for people to nominate leaders.
Oh, nice.
To receive an award. Yeah.
What awards are you giving out?
We're giving out Courageous Leader Awards. There are several categories that they can be awarded in. You could even do, and if you want to nominate a whole district or a whole organization, you can do that. People can come out to the conference and be honored at the conference.
So I know the focus is to impact our student learners.
Yes.
But you're going to have these adult learners at your conference.
Yes.
What is it that you want them to recognize when they're hearing the keynote speakers or in session? And what is it that you want them to be empowered with by the time they leave this conference?
So I want them to recognize that we learners come in different sizes, shapes, and categories, and that we all learn differently. And thus, UDL is one of the elements. I want them to also understand that people come with different cultural backgrounds and also come with different traumatizing experiences and different decision-making tactics. And so we want to make sure that they're recognizing that, so that as we're talking about the intentional integration of the elements, that they are understanding that integrating those elements are what's going to be impactful for students when they come with those intersecting challenges. I want them to come with an open mind, an open heart, because the theme this year is getting to the heart of learning. But I want them to leave with tools and strategies and empowerment towards ensuring that we're providing the best opportunities for our learners. I want them to leave with systems thinking about how we can impact our system so that we can best serve our students.
And those systems sometimes are broken because we are focused on practices and not necessarily the best strategies that work for our diverse learners and also our diverse teachers, right? because they're learners as well. The classified staff, if we have paraeducators working with them, campus security officers working with them, nutritional services. See, she said everyone is invited because everyone impacts the lives of the student learner, the bus driver, right? The volunteer who might be welcoming students in, or even noon duty, people at recess time, anyone who's over supervision. This is a time for you all to come out in December. Bring your team so that your team can come and learn strategies that's either confirming what you're doing or to change the trajectory of what you're doing so that it can influence and impact students more.
Yes.
I'm excited. I'm excited for what you're doing.
Thank you.
And remind the Gifted Table family, why did you even start having this conference? What was the need that you saw was not being met?
I've worked across all 5 counties in Southern California. Well, I don't want to say all 5 because we have multiple, but I've worked across 5 counties in Southern California in different capacities. And I've seen a few different types of schools. And that might be, a PBIS school. I've seen the trauma-informed school. And so for me, it came together like, why are we practicing in silos? How come we're not integrating the practices so that we're covering the learning for all adults that'll be working with our students that come with different challenges, different learning abilities, different traumatizing events that have happened, but making sure that educators are well trained in those areas to be able to recognize when students are coming in with challenges. And when I say challenges, I mean not something that's negative, not a deficit, but a challenge. Like something happened, and you're traumatized, and you don't even realize you're traumatized. But having instructor, teachers, having campus supervisors, having the cafeteria worker, the person who the admin assistant or the secretary who the students first interact with when they're going to the attendance office, having those individuals understand and recognize when there's something different about the student or something that the student might be experiencing, and having them trained in many areas so that we're approaching it from a humanistic perspective versus like, oh, you're late again. We want to say, hey, I'm so happy to see you. I'm glad you made it in today. How can I help you?
Right. Have you had breakfast?
Have you had breakfast? No, not breakfast is over.
Right.
Because, sometimes we be like, breakfast is over. I don't know what you're going to do. So yeah.
I got a cracker.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So I saw a need. I saw a need for ensuring that people have an awareness first to start with, and then after awareness, have some capacity building, and just on down a continuum, because the Q10 also has a continuum.
And what a great coaching moment as well as collaborating with people. But a great coaching moment for our educators. And again, educators are any people who work within the education field.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter your title, you're still an educator. I say it all the time, people. I say it all the time.
and I agree with that so much. And I say that too. And it's odd that some people don't see themselves, or even others don't see some people as educators. But if we're providing even parents who may not necessarily, earn a living in the educational, they're the first educators.
The very first.
And they're educators. They're educating us to help them educate their kids.
And however that education is at home, that is the first education.
Absolutely.
Whatever that is, whatever learning you're teaching, whatever you're modeling to your children, good, bad, or indifferent, that is their first learning experience.
And that's why culturally responsive practices, which is one of the elements, is really big. Because when we think about the learning that happens at home and we think about culture, culture is not necessarily tied to an ethnicity. Right. Culture is, it could be a group of us from different backgrounds and ethnicities that live within the same environment that are developing our own culture. So when there's a culture at home, I want to know more about that culture at home so that I can help that student. I want to not help them learn something different, but I want to incorporate what they already know. Like, our students come with so much, and we forget that they come with more than what we can ever even imagine. So
share a little about what intersectionality is and when we're referring to learner or just people in general.
I think about the intersectionality. A lot of times we think about intersectionality with race or ethnicity and the idea that we're women. So when things happen, we think about how we experience maybe challenges from an intersectional perspective, being Black and being a woman, right? Those intersections. And a specific example I can give is before women were allowed to vote, there was a point where we were not allowed to vote, right? And then there was a point where Black people were not allowed to vote, right? And so as we think about that intersectionality, when women gained the rights to vote, there were still some of us women that were Black. So who still did not get to vote. And so that intersectionality, we're still one step behind, right? And so when I think about intersectionality in other ways, that's just one example. There's so many different things. And so when we talk about that, and we want to make sure that we're not allowing our students to continue to experience the challenges that comes with that intersectionality, being a person of color, being a woman, being LGBTQIA, and and another intersectionality, or whatever the intersectionality is, you're experiencing challenges times multiple.
Right.
I almost said times two.
Right.
But multiple.
Yeah, because you could be a foster youth.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
You could be an incarcerated youth.
Yes.
You could be in a group home. Excuse me. You might be someone whose your intersectionality could also include, your religion.
Absolutely.
And all of those beliefs.
Absolutely.
So, yeah. And I just want people to understand that when we're talking about intersectionality, it's not just limited to race and gender.
Absolutely.
Right?
It goes
or
beyond.
Ethnicity and gender. Because people are so much more.
Right.
I always think about when you ask someone, who are you? And when people start listing their titles, oh, I'm this, or I work in this industry, and then follow, but who are you? But who are you?
Right.
I'm a woman, I'm a daughter, I'm a sister. We're so much more than what, our profession may say that we are. And so just really getting into all of those things. Well, I know that this conference is going to be a success because we are going to have so many people, not only here, you're going to share this information and we're going to get it out there, register your teams, nominate someone for, what was the title of it?
It's the Quantum Impact Courageous Leadership Award.
Who do you know who's a courageous leader who's making an impact in the educational industry?
And I'm glad you said education because we actually extended the
Look at me.
we extended the Courageous Impact the Courageous Impact Awards outside of education because we work.
My biases.
I work with so many leaders that are not in education,
Absolutely.
and we want to honor all leaders,
Absolutely.
and we want the world to intersect. Because let me tell you what happens with our educational system. Everything that's happening in our educational system is spilling over into our world.
Yes.
And so when we have courageous leaders that are impacting, we have some that are impacting the educational field.
They partner with us.
We got some partners.
Yes.
We got some partners in education.
Partners and
that
allies.
Yeah. So can we get some partners and allies nominated so that they can come to the conference and be awarded and bring a team?
Let's do it.
December 6th, 7th, and 8th.
Now we're going to backwards map this thing because we started with the conference.
Yes.
Right? But the conference, that's just that's just an extension of your baby.
It is.
Let's talk about your business. Let's talk about your company.
My business is Transformational Leadership Consulting Services, TLC. I call it TLC for short, like Quantum 10, Q10,
Yes.
Transformational Leadership Consulting Services, TLC. And so
we need a little TLC.
We do, and that's what it's about. And TLC, with that, of course, they kind of merge a little bit because what I want to offer is I want people to see what it looks like to be a quantum. We talk about a PBIS school, we talk about a trauma-informed school. What does it look like to be a quantum school, a quantum 10 school, where all 10 elements. And let me tell you something. I'm going to say this out loud. I know that when people see the framework, they're like, that's a lot. But I'm thinking to myself, how amazing would it be to have your staff and everyone who impacts kids trained in elements and all of the elements of the Q10 and to ensure that intentional integration and to see where you are on the continuum, to see where you want to go, to map out where you want to go on the continuum.
Right.
How impactful is that for what courageous leader is ready to say, you know what?
Who's ready?
Let me take my team so that they can ensure that there's a positive impact for all learners who comes through our doors.
And you don't have to do it all at once.
No,
right?
You can't.
You don't have to do it all at once. Start small chunks, do something well, Let that grow. Let that become part of your system. Let that become part of your culture at your school.
Yep.
And continue to add on. But be intentional about saying, we're going to do all 10. We're just
Right.
not doing all 10 right now.
Right. And that's good. And so in some schools and districts are already well versed in some areas. So you're already halfway there. Now let's talk about how to intentionally integrate the ones that you already have embraced. Because right now, because people are already doing it.
Yes.
So I don't want
It's
there
not
to be a
more work.
right. It's not
It's
more
not
work. I don't want the misconception that people are not doing it.
Right.
Absolutely. I see it and I'm like, wow, they are really using these elements, but they're in silos. So now what does it look like when you intentionally integrate those practices, not only in the classroom, but at the elementary school level, on the playground and, on campus. When I worked as a high school administrator, I didn't have all the training and everything, but some of our staff were trained in certain areas. And I'm telling you, there were some kids that, and I really have been able to really communicate and impact many kids. But there have been some that cannot even hear my voice. And I'm like, why? What can I?
Yes.
But those that can't, I gotta make sure they can hear
If
someone's voice.
not me, then who?
Exactly.
Right?
And I had some campus security guards that I would be like, can you talk with Melanie today? Because Melanie can't hear me today. And I really need her. I really need her to know that we love her.
Yes.
And she can't hear that from me today. Can you talk to Melanie today? And if we don't provide that training for all staff and not just teachers, then we run the risk of not being able to get through to some kids. Because there's some kids that are only going to connect with the campus security guards, or that are only going to connect with the secretary on the school grounds, or that might only connect with the superintendent who walks in maybe once or twice a month. I need everyone to understand how to connect with kids.
Right. And so how does TLC help to reinforce that? What can people learn from TLC? How do you, what do you do? Do you reach out to individuals? Do you do group sessions?
I think it's more of a group session.
Okay.
And so more for starting at the leadership level, because one of the things that, on the continuum, it starts at exploring, it goes to emerging, it goes to transforming, bridging, and it goes to advancing and sustaining.
Okay.
And so if you want to sustain it, like working one-on-one with a teacher won't sustain anything.
No.
But me working with the organization, like the district office or even the school site principal, will help get them well trained so that they can and then turn and train their staff. So just making sure that people are well versed in any areas that they want to start with at first. And I would say a couple at a time so that you can intentionally integrate those
There
two.
you go.
And then we build on. And then after we finish building on from there, we look to see, we start off with an assessment. You got to know where you are. Right. And then we end off with create a baseline.
Okay.
And then we end up with the post assessment so that we can see where you ended up. And then we continue from there.
And when you talk about working with your site leaders, one thing that we know happens a lot in education, we can have transient administrators, right? Or we will have movement a lot. So how can a school site get to that sustainability if sometimes within districts there's a lot of movement at sites, and maybe this principal wanted to start the integration of it, but now they've been removed or moved to a different site, or perhaps left the district themselves, but they started the work.
That's why it's very important to have a team. So with the assessment that we offer, we can do individual, but the preference is to do like a team assessment to find out where's your team. And with that team, you always want to make sure that you have teachers on that team, because teachers don't often go. We know that teachers stay stationary, and especially teacher leaders. And I know that sometimes they do promote up, but a lot of times when you get like department chairs, a lot of department chairs are there for a long time. And not that it has to be a department chair. Again, it could be, you could have your campus supervisor on that team helping to lead that team. Because when we think about this type of work, we think it's only about classroom strategies, and it's not. It's beyond that.
Influencers.
We need
people
do.
who are influencers, who will influence, and who's going to do the work. And I think that is so key. So when you're going in, I bet you recognize that right away.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
And I'll say this, although we do want classroom strategies, because we want to make sure that there's a couple of different things going on. Because when we're working towards doing whatever the training looks like for your own school site, it's not, I don't want to be training your school site. I want people to train their own school sites. I want people to get the practices down. And after you understand the practices, when you talk about Maslow's and the 8 categories, when you talk about all the different categories in Maslow's, understanding all of that stuff is important. But now what are we going to do with it? That's a different training.
Absolutely.
I don't know what your site is like. I don't know what you need for your site. So that is co-crafting what that looks like and training your own site. It's not about us going in. And I think that that's what happens a lot when we get to independent consulting and things like that. We want to keep ourselves employed. And this for me is not about keeping myself employed, because we all know I have a day job. This is really about ensuring that people have everything that they need to be successful. And once we get you there, I can walk away, and not forever, but I can step to the side and I can stay on the side and support in any type of way necessary while you ensure that your staff has everything that they need.
Well, you said it earlier. We talked about culture of a school site. You're coming in as a consultant.
Absolutely.
You're not coming in there to change the culture. That's for them to recognize, but to see what are some elements of your culture that's already working and what can we tweak a little bit. What would you say has been the response from school sites, leaders you've worked with so far about the implementation?
Well, what I'll say is, and I've had an opportunity to work with a couple of different organizations, and it's tough. In all transparency, it's tough. One site that I worked with, and actually I worked with the organization, it was different because we were working with the correctional facility, we were working with the correctional students and everything. And it was like some of the things that we talked about, especially like something like universal design for learning, where you're giving students an option on how you want to learn this and what you want to learn and this and that. When you're in a correctional facility, sometimes you don't have a lot of options. And so we had to really become creative. And so it's like, what I don't know, I'm going to help you co-craft. And that's the important piece about being able to build your own with all these are tools, these are strategies. There's no one way to do any of this. And if I pretend that there's a one way to do any of this, I can can it up and push it out. None of it's going to be canned. It has to be organic. And so we had an opportunity to really talk more in depth about what does universal design look like for the correctional facilities, and how does culturally responsive practices integrate with that when there's a culture in itself, and how do you give those students options when you're asking them? I think the course we were talking about was the automotive course. How do you give them options, when there are steps, involved with, you don't get to skip a step because you don't want to do the step, and so we just kind of co-crafted what that looked like. And we talked about, well, maybe the options are not necessarily in how you build the I don't even know the name of the parts of the car on how you build the car, but the options are, how do I learn? Am I going to read this? Can I watch a video? Am I able to listen to an iPod and while I'm reading at the same time? And maybe in the correctional facilities,
based on my learning style.
Right, based on your learning style versus like, I'm going to give you an option. Do you want to do it this or that? And again, in some areas, you might not have access to technology. So we have to be more creative about how we give options. And so we just have to co-create when you're in a rural area or when you're in an area where you don't have the resources. We have to be, co-crafting and understanding that we give the students also an opportunity to talk about how they want to receive the information. How do they want to give the information? So it's hard. It's hard, but I think the consensus is that it's worth it. Because it's a lot of moving parts when you really want to make sure that you have everything you need for your learners. There are a lot of moving parts, and if you're in for the long haul, it's really worth it.
Well, like you said, if it was easy, everyone would be doing it, and if you could can it and just mass produce it, you would have already done it. Now, let me ask you this. You're speaking about co-crafting with others. Looking ahead, what are you co-crafting, and who do you need to help co-craft with you?
I love this, vodcast, podcast, and I've been talking about vodcast and podcast. I'm going to do a vodcast. I want to do like a video vodcast.
You heard it here, people.
Yes, it will be coming. I don't know what it is yet, but it will be coming. And if you're interested in collaborating, let me know. So that's what I need. The other thing I think I need is for the Q10 conference, I think I need partners, more partners. I definitely have some major sponsors for this year. which is really exciting. Footsteps to Freedom is one of our major sponsors. They sponsored, and I'm hopeful that we'll have some Footsteps to Freedom.
Thank you, Footsteps to Freedom.
Thank you.
I've been on that journey.
Yes, and so we need our Footsteps to Freedom people to come out. We have a Footsteps session. Footsteps, I think it's called What's Next, Footsteps.
Oh.
You know, so if we have people, we want you to come out and hear what's next after Footsteps. And that part right there is about what, like you already went on this journey.
Yeah.
Now
what's next?
And so I love to hear, you know, our Footsteps staff talk about, we always connect with people to talk about what's next. And I love that. And we do that individually, but are we doing that systems wide? And so this is about what's next in your organization and how do you take it to the next level? We have a few sponsors, so I don't want to neglect our sponsors, but we have a lot of sponsors. Reconstruction is one of our sponsors. Our keynotes, some of our keynotes are in kind.
Nice.
You know, all of our keynotes are in kind, so that's beautiful. And then we have just some other major sponsors that just really decided to pour in. I'm gonna miss some people, so I don't really want to miss people. Mosaic is a sponsor,
right? Okay.
Yes, so just lots of sponsors, and we're just excited to make sure that we keep our sponsorships. And
so you started talking about your vodcast.
Yes,
what is that going to look like for you? So if we have some folks in the Gifted Table world who want to support, maybe come on, what is going to be a format? What are you considering? I'm
definitely considering leadership, for sure. And I haven't decided I want to be able to bring leaders on who have had experiences. I want to help other leaders to navigate through some experiences and some challenges, but I also want to hear the positive sides of leadership. So I want to do something on leadership. Okay. I may be a guest. You will be a guest. You will be a guest for sure. You will be. I may be a guest. Matter of fact, let's start now. So, no. So the tables have turned. The tables have turned. Beautiful.
Well, sis, I am looking for great things for you. I know they're going to happen. Please, everyone, go online. Where's the website? What's the website address? The website is www.q10equityineducation.com. So check her out. Take your team, nominate someone for the Courageous Leader. I know I said it wrong award, you're right. But check it out and let's support one another. Let's support leaders because we have this powerful, beautiful woman in leadership, supporting others and impacting the leadership. So thank you so much for being here again.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
My girl, I can't wait to be on hers.
Yes, there you go. I'm about to get it up there.
And don't forget to like this video, give it a big thumbs up. And if you're not a subscriber, please be sure to subscribe. And as always, remember, stay grounded, innovative, fierce, transparent every day. In other words, stay gifted. And I'll see you next time.